That's
on
okay.
that.
No,
Well,
the traffic light doesn't turn, meaning that I have a new traffic light. That's it. I just need to leave my home a few minutes early. Okay. All right, we're good. We're good. We're good. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Shvis, Pedig Beis, Halachet Dalid. We're learning today Daf Yud Aleph. We left off Mamish on the top by the Mishnah. And the discussion that we will be having today will be about planting trees close to Shvi'is. When we're speaking about planting trees, I want to remind everyone that Rambam Kedarkoi has a almost standalone position, and what we will be learning today will dafka not be like the Rambam. But first of all, I'm going back into the Rambam Mehilchos Shmita v'Yovel Perek Rishon, all the way in the beginning. When the Rambam speaks halacha aleph that you have a positive commandment, lishbois b'shana shvius ma'avodas haaretz va'avodas ilonis. Halacha beis, the Rambam says that what is biblically prohibited on the shvius year, eino loikim in Torah ella. The Rambam counts to four: zriya, sowing, and we'll see. According to the Rambam, sowing does not include planting a tree. It's sowing grains, legumes, vegetables, or trimming. Now, yeah, trimming is trimming trees. Alaktsira, harvesting, and as we'll see later in the Rambam, it's harvesting in the regular manner, harvesting grain. And batzir in the Rambam here means harvesting fruit. Okay. What is included? Okay, period. The Rambam writes that these four are the only biblical prohibitions, but everything else is only yasan midrabanan. This is halacha dalit. For example, according to the Rambam, plowing is only midrabanan. Chayfer digging, letzoyrech karka, hamasakal removing stones, as we learned before about. Mezabel is fertilizing. V'chein, the Rambam writes, hamavrich, hamarkiv, layering, grafting, noiteya, planting trees. The Rambam writes, makin oisim makos mardos midivrein. So holds the Rambam. The sugya that we are learning today clearly will not follow this opinion. We're going to, in other words, the Rambam had another source for the Isur de Rabbanan. We are going to premise everything we're learning today that number one, that planting a tree is included in the Isur Doiraisa of sowing a seed in the ground on the Shemitah year. Now, when you plant a tree on prior to the Shvi'is year, says the Mishnah that if you're going to plant it in close proximity of the Shvi'is year, that it will only take root on the seventh year, that is asur midoiraisa. And just for us to appreciate the halacha of our Mishnah, we differentiate, we have to separate the Isur of Shabbos, Mamish, and the Isur of Shvi'is. By Shabbos, we all learn to Sugya. By Shabbos, one may not do the act on Shabbos. But if I do an act prior to Shabbos, even if my action will cause for a certain malacha to continue to happen on Shabbos, that will be permitted. Right? In the Nemuka Yosef, the famous example, we light candles before Shabbos. It's one of the 7 positive rabbinic mitzvahs. Hadlakas neder, to listen to the Chachamim, and we light candles. The candles that I light prior to Shabbos, really, it's primarily on the woman, but the candles that we have to have lit in our home prior to Shabbos remains burning on Shabbos. Remember the whole Nemuka Yosef, right? Bava Kama, that if you're going to say that Ishay Mishum Chitzoi, that if the reason why by Nizakin, if I burn your field down, even though I lit a fire in my property, but if it burnt down your property, I'm chayiv because that's as if I shot an arrow. So the Nemuka Yosef asks, so why are we allowed to light a candle before Shabbos? So he says, yeah, because when did I light the candle? Before Shabbos. Of course, I'm chayiv for damages, but the action happened before Shabbos, and by Shabbos chevre, almost always the prohibition is not to do the act on Shabbos proper. I know there is an exception. The exception is cooking. We all know the sugya, shihiyah, right? That if I put something up on the fire prior to Shabbos, right? Rabbinically, there'll be issues with that item cooking on Shabbos. I know that. But unlike Shabbos, where the issue, where the issue is the act, from our Mishnah, we see clearly that on Shemitah, the issue isn't only the action. It's not like Hashem told me, don't plant a seed on Shvi'is. No, don't do an action that will cause for a tree to be planted on Shvi'is. And therefore, if the root will only take place on the 7th year, the prohibition, and our sugi is going on a doiraisa, the isur of planting doesn't begin on the Shvi'is year. It will begin in close proximity prior to the Shvi'is year. This is independent of Tosefes Shvi'is. This is a new topic. It's similar to Tosefes Shvi'is in the way that B'Poyel Mamish, there'll be things that I will already not be allowed to do prior to the Shemitah year properly. Now the question is, how long do we halachically say does it take you from when you plant the tree in the ground, the seed, for it to take root? We're going to have a 3-way machloikas tanoim, 30 days, 3 days, or 2 weeks, and that will be the isur. That will be one topic. The next topic will be, the Mishnah says that if someone planted the tree prior to Shvi'is, then they are penalized that tree has to be uprooted. God willing, we started a few minutes late. In the Bavli, we're going to hopefully learn inside, regarding this halacha, we have a machlokes, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, whether we say that only if you planted it b'mezit, or even if you planted it b'shoigig. And that will be very negeya to understanding the next big topic that we'll have on Daf Yud Aleph. It's a small daf, but it's packed up, and that is what happens if, let's say, the father, the principal, he violated this issur, and he planted a tree, let's say, within 3 days, or within 2 weeks, or within 30 days. And the Chachamim therefore tell him, Ya'akor. What happens if that person passes away and his son inherits the field? Do we say that the child will be penalized? That's another sugya that we also have in the Bavli. If we'll have time, we'll read it inside. That's in Bavli. We'll read, if we'll have time, 3 different areas where we question whether we penalize the son or to the father. And we'll have this topic discussed over here. And that will lead us into, let's see how far we get, into how one counts the years of Arla. You'll see how this ties one into the other. The years of Arla, let's go according to the opinion that says that it takes 30 days for a tree to take root. According to that, if you plant a tree within 30 days of any year, since the root only took place after Rosh Hashanah, so let's say today is Tavshin Pei Hey, if you're going to plant a tree, Elul, Beis Elul, Tavshin Pei Hey, year number 1 only begins Tavshin Pei Vav. Because the years of Arla only begin from when it takes root, whether it's 3 days, whether it's the 2 weeks, whether it is the 30 days. And there's a lot more to say. There's a machlokes Rashi Rabbeinu Tam. Let's see how far we can get. So we're going to begin the discussion of how to count the years of Arla. And God willing, tomorrow, on Tainis Esther, we're going to continue this discussion by making it clear that the way you count, the way you begin the count of Arla, is not the way you end the count of Arla. The ending is on Tu B'Shvat, as we'll see. Okay. So Chevra Daf Yud Aleph on top by the Mishnah. The premise again is that planting a tree on Shvi'is is Asur Doiraisa. What we are learning right now is independent of Tosefes Shvi'is. So it says the Mishnah that a noitin, one may not plant a tree, and included in that is a mavrichin. That's the seder of our Mishnah. The Gemara had a different seder in the Mishnah, right? To be mavriach, bracha, mavrich esagefen, guys, whoever learned Kalayim, it's the system called layering, in where you take the tip of the vine and you insert it in the ground, and that develops to become a vine in itself. So it's another form of planting. And also the ein markiven, grafting, you're not putting something into the ground, but you're taking a branch from one and you are inserting it into the other. Of course, we're not speaking about, we know that we're not allowed to graft 2 different species together, right? By trees, there's no isur of planting them together. Yes, there is an isur dorais of grafting them together. And by the way, the goyim are mitzvah also in grafting. If it was done, you can benefit. So we're speaking about the same type. In other words, I have an apple tree, I have another apple tree. For whatever reason, I want to take the branch of apple tree number 1 and I insert it into apple tree number 2. That's also an act of planting. So it's really all included in planting. Now, I'm allowed to do it if it's apple to apple during the rest of the 6 years. I'm for sure not allowed to do it midoraisa on the Shemitah year. You're not allowed to plant. The Mishnah is saying is that, like we mentioned in the words of introduction, that the Isur of Shvi'is, unlike Shabbos, is not the act of planting, but it's causing something to be planted. And what do I mean by causing something to be planted? That when it comes to trees, there's a certain amount of time needed for it to take root, for it to take hold. And if I do it in such close proximity to Shvi'is that it will take root on the 7th year, then when Hashem says don't do it, he means even before, because it's going to take root on. Now, how much time do we need? So you can't even do it out of Shvi'is. How much time? According to the Tanakama, less than 30 days. According to the Tanakama, trees take root. No matter how you're doing it, seed in the ground, a graft, a layering, it takes 30 days. So if you're not giving it a full 30 days, then you're violating. Then you planted something on the Shemitah year. Now, what happens if you did that violation? So says the Mishnah, ve'im nata oy hivrich oy hirkiv. Now ya'akoir. And clearly, this din that you have to uproot it is a rabbinic, and I'm going to call this a knas. And as we will see, not here, but quoting from the Bavli, that Rabbi Yehuda holds that this knas is only if you planted it b'mezid, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Meir holds that even if you planted it b'shoigig, you also have to do yakor. Why does he make that gezerah? Many people are familiar with the words, kansina and shoigig atu mezid. We're going to quote from the Bavli 2 reasons, and both reasons will be very important to know, but we'll speak about that when we get into the Gemara on Amid Beis. Okay, Tanakama holds 30 days. Rabbi Yehuda agrees with the concept. He just has a different timeline. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, kol harkava she'enu keletes l'shleisha yamim, shuv enu keletes. In other words, it only takes 3 days for something to take hold, whether you're planting, whether you're layering, whether you're grafting. So the concept I agree with. The Isur is not the act, the Isur is causing it to happen. You can't cause it to happen on the Shemitah year. So when Hashem says, included according to the way our Sugya learns, that you're not allowed a seed, which includes planting a tree, Hashem means, even though Hashem says don't do it on the 7th year, no, don't cause it to happen on the 7th year. Don't do it within 3 days. And the final opinion in the Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon Oimrim, that what? That l'shtei Shabbosos, that it takes 2 weeks, so you can't plant it within 2 weeks, with less than 2 weeks. If you gave it 2 weeks, then you're good. Okay. Now, before...
Sorry, but what about transplanting?
Same thing.
According to what I've seen, it says it takes a year for a tree transplanted to
I'm happy
take
that
roots.
You're saying that. I'm happy you're saying this. Let me tell you, Kevin, hold your thought and listen to this. Generally, I know there are exceptions, but they're very few and we're not comfortable with it. We generally have the approach that we're not arguing in the Mitzias. We're going with the approach that the Tanoim, because Soid Hashem liyareyev, not because they went to botanical school, that they know the reality of this world. Or even better, they know it because they know how it works. But whenever there's such a debate, something begins 3 days. There's another something significant that happens 2 weeks. There's another something significant that happens in 30 days. Kevin, like you're saying, could be there are other significant steps. The question is halachically, what step is halachically the valid step? What does halacha deem to be this step? That's what the machloikas is. So it doesn't bother me if science now will discover a certain truth that there's another phase that happens after 3 months or another phase that happens after who knows how much. Say that. The Torah says what is of significance vis-a-vis the halach of not causing something to happen. Machloikas, 3-way machloikas. Okay, now I want to take out over here. I don't care. I woke up late. Look inside the Maraful. Now, there's another whole discussion that we're going to mention now, and then we're going to shelve. We are learning this Mishnah, correctly so, that we finished the sugya of Tosefes. We finished the sugya of Tosefes. Now we're beginning with Shvi'is proper. That happens to be that when the Shemitah begin, by Netiyah, 30 days prior, less than 30 days, less than 2 weeks, less than 3 days. Hold on. What about Tosefes? What about Tosefes Shvi'is? Do we say, let's go with the Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Shimon, 2 weeks? Okay. I'm not talking about when there's no Beis Hamikdash. We went through this yesterday. We said it enough times. When we were obligated, halacha l'Moshe Sinai, or according to Rabbi Akiva, midoiraisa, to keep 30 days, right? Is pshat now that when Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Shimon say 2 weeks, they mean 2 weeks before the 30 days. 30 days before the 30 days. 3 days before the 30 days. That's a machlokes Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. So and where do we have that? In Rosh Hashanah Bavli. So the Marafulda brings Shitas Rashi. Just let's read it inside. The third line from the top, Pachas Mishleishim Yoim, in the Bavli Bebavli, right? Rosh Hashanah Yudam Beis. Moichiach, that Misha Savar Shleishim Yoim Leklita, the opinion, the Tanakama, whoever that is, holds that it takes 30 days. The Klita means to take hold. You have to now put it together with what we learned before. That Tzarech Shloishim Milvad Hatoi Sefer Shloishim Yom Lifnei Rosh Hashanah. And the same is Lamanda Amar Shloishim Yomim. It means, what is 3 days? 3 days before the 30 days. V'chei Lamanda Amar Shnei Shabbosos. Then he teaches the word Kalita means Sheniklat Hanetia Ba'aretz V'nishtarish. What taking hold has to do with one phase in its taking. The Maraf folder doesn't bring the Rabbeinu Tam. If you're going to open up Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud Amid Beis in the Bavli, you'll see that the Rabbeinu Tam categorically argues, even during the times of the Beis Hamikdash, when Tosefes is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, even during that time, the issue of not causing something to happen on Tosefes that never existed. So according to the Rabbeinu Tam, who argues with Rashi, we never compounded one together with the other. And that's extremely important. Now, we're not saying that you should plant within the 30 days. When you were not allowed to plant, you were not allowed to plant. But just as an example, when we're learning in our Mishnah that if you did it, you have to uproot it. When that is concerning the Isur Midoiraisa of planting on Shvis, that since you violated it, even B'shoigeg, you have to uproot it. That's only B'negeya the Shemitah year itself, and not Benegeya the Tosefes. Okay, so this shelve it. I'm shelving it specifically because now that we learned that after the Churban Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara already mentioned twice that Ha'idna, that we are noyek to plant until Shvius. That's the beauty of Daf Yud Aleph. We don't have until the building of the third Beis Hamikdash Tosefes, but this halacha stays. So we're going to separate it. When we're going to go forward, just remember that Rabbeinu Tam learned this, and Rashi learns the whole sugya like we just mentioned. It's this compounded with that, and the Rabbeinu Tam disagrees with it.
Oh, wait, does planting only apply to planting in dirt, or can you plant in water and be exempt?
So that's a great question, because the words are always avodas haaretz and avodas ilonos. So Kevin is asking, what about planting in water? I would say from guessing that Doiraisa for sure you're not violating. I mean, I don't think this is a guess. Whether the Chachamim would make a Gzeira, I don't even know. I think that's a great thing to look into. Okay, so let's begin. So the Mishnah began.
So I'm just to clarify.
Yes,
there's no Tosefes Shvius post Rabban Gamliel.
Post Churban Beis Hamikdash. Yes.
Post, right?
Yes.
But this that we're learning now in this Mishnah absolutely does apply.
Yes, and one more thing, Danny. It only applies. No, there are many other Mishnayos. The Rambam doesn't paskin like this. It applies based that since God said don't plant a tree, if the planting a tree would be asun midrabanan, this whole thing doesn't stand. When Hashem said don't plant, we're saying a huge chiddush, because by Shabbos we also have don't do. In Shabbos, don't do means don't do the act. And the Mishnah is being mechadash. All of the Tanoim say Shvius is different. It's a whole different system. God didn't say don't do it. God says don't cause it to happen on the 7th year. Don't cause it to happen on the 7th year. Oy bazoi, when it comes to seeds of trees, you got to know halachically how long does it take how long does it take for it to take hold? It's big.
And the idea is that if you plant it within that time, then it's kind of like you planted it on Shemitah. Even
And
though
you're
you planted it before.
Very good, Danny. And
Okay.
since you violated his doiraisa, the Chachamim says, you violated Yaakov. B'diuk. How great is this? Just there's this whole Torah of making a chiluk between Shabbos and Shvis is from the Minchas Chinuch, and he's so accurate, and he explains everything with it. Okay. Now, the Mishnah began by saying the three types of planting: Noitin, Markiven. I'm just pointing out that in our Gemara, when the Gemara quotes the Mishnah, the order of the Gemara in the Mishnah is different. Okay, fine. So, in other words, he says Ein Noitin, Ein Markiven, and then Ein Mavrichen. It must be that way. But the Gemara is focusing on the you violated. Now you have to uproot the tree. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Lazar, in the name of Rabbi Yossi Bar Zimra. When do you have to uproot the tree? That's already a penalty. Is masnisa bistam. That means that you don't know exactly when it took root. So we are relying on one of these three general opinions, whether you follow the 30 days, whether you follow the 3 days, whether you follow the 2 weeks. What does he mean by that? He means by that when it comes to a Isur Doiraisa, generally we say loy plug. When it comes to a Knas Derabanan, we don't say loy plug, which means ha davar body sheheshrish. If let me go on the boundary of 30 days. Not every seed in every soil, depending on how much water, exactly is the same. Makes sense. In other words, what were to happen if someone were to be able to know, a botanist, if someone planted it, Danny, let's say 29 days before Rosh Hashanah, but he knows that because of the conditions of the soil, it's good Brazilian earth, it's good earth, it took root already. Now, you shouldn't have done it because the Chachamim said, according to the Tanakhama, 30 days. But if you know that it took root before Rosh Hashanah, at least you're not going to be penalized. Mutter means not you're allowed to plant because it doesn't work that way. But you don't have to uproot it. That's the pshat. Look inside the Marav folder. Psta means the lo yodinan im nishtarish im loy. So then, whichever opinion you follow. Avalim body lanu. Body means not healthy. If it's clear. If you know it took hold, it happened quicker, so then you don't have to uproot it. Beautiful. Let's go weiter. The Mishnah says, Ein noitin, the ein mavrichen. Now back to the seder that we had. The ein markiven erev shvi is. Right, guys, Tanakama, 30 days. Rabbi Yehuda, 3 days. And Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, 2 weeks, turning to Daf, Yud Aleph Amid Beis. Pachus, Mishloishim Yom Lifnei Rosh Hashanah. And the Mishnah says, V'im nata, oy hivrich, oy hirkiv den yakoir. So now, what the Mishnah did not discuss is the next step, which is, what happens if you did not uproot it? So what's the question now? What is the status of its peiros? Lo Yakar asks the Gemara, peiros of mahen. Now, the question on the fruits, like always, there's a big machlokes here between it's the Pnei Moshe and the Rash. What is the Gemara's kasha? The Pnei Moshe understands the Gemara's inquiry. Look inside the top line, peiros of mahen. The question is whether you are allowed to eat it at all. You should have uprooted the tree. Can you eat it at all? And clearly, the Rash Shadilio, I'm quoting one line ahead, but you can already look inside the third line from the top right, understands the Gemara's question, not whether the peirosav are completely prohibited, whether we say that the fruits of that, let's say, of that tree will always have a status of peiros shvi'is. Peiros shvi'is, you can't say you can't eat it, but there are many restrictions to it. It's subject to biur. There's a kedusha, you can't do schayda with it. You should not take it out of the Holy Land. That's the 3 lines from the top and the Rashidilio. That I know the words are later. Yishbuchu peirosav kolim v'nafkidem kedin shvi'is. The kiven, the Rash, Sidilio. The nota b'shvi'is lo oilam have shvi'is va'afilu mikan va'admei yashanim. On every single year. So just there's a machlokes in the understanding of the Gemara's kasha. So whichever way you want to learn, let's just stick with the Pnei Moshe. Can you eat the fruits or not? So the Gemara answers by quoting a story that Rabbi Ba, which is Rabbi Abba, and Rab Law, right? Rabbi Law. Hava Yosvin, they were sitting in Soir, and also Uvda Kameyoin. And that was a shaila that came to them. Now, we're not talking about the prohibition. Shviz is only ba'aretz. Doesn't matter. But fruits from a tree that was planted, not even on Shviz, it was planted, let's say 30 days before, and the owner did not uproot it. And now we know that these are the fruits. So the question was exactly, let's go with the Pnei Moshe, can you eat it or not? Hoidi Rabbi Law. Now, I know when I read yesterday, I saw lo yishavchu. I got all confused. No. Hoide Rabbi Law kama that yishavchu peiroisav. The way the Pnei Moshe learns, he says the fruits are completely prohibited. He was very machmer.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Doesn't Arla prohibit them anyway for, what is it, 3 years?
These, like I told you, Kevan, these fruits came 100 years after it was planted. I like what he writes. Someone planted a tree within 30 days. And the Chachamim said, you got to uproot the tree. This person did not uproot the tree.
Okay.
So Rabbi Law is saying that the knas, that you have to uproot it, means that the fruits of that will always be asur. That's a big chiddush, because the Chachamim in the Mishnah never said you can't have the fruits. The Chachamim says yakod. So the Rabbi Ba challenged.
So there's no correlation in this case between what we're learning about trees and what would apply to, let's say, a field planted during Shemitah, because no field lasts for years.
Exactly. Thank you, Danny. Perfect.
So this is like very
this
unique
whole question,
tree
beautiful.
halacha.
Thank you. This whole shaila is only shaykh by a tree. Gavaldik. Oh.
Wouldn't he require then some kind of ashgacha on every tree in Israel if he?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You know that's yes, it's actually written. L'loy chashash or lo ushvis. Look on all of the produce in Israel. You'll see that whether they are giving you the emes. That's a question on any ashgacha company. Yeah, they have to write. It's amazing, guys. The beauty about learning these mesechtes, I know there are many beautiful things. First, we're learning God's Torah, is that we're living chutz la'aretz keeps us completely disconnected from all of the laws of agriculture. By us, agriculture is kosher. Yeah, chutz la'aretz generally, yeah, not ba'aretz. Look how much you have to be concerned about. So says the Gemara, Amar Rabba challenged. So they were sitting together. Rabbi Ila gave up psak din, and Amar Rabbi Ba ani loidim nesimon ba'aliyah. It's a beautiful expression. You know, Aliyah's Chananya ben Gorain, it's not just that Aliyah. It looks from our Gemara that many times when the Chazal got together to make new enactments or to modify enactments, they got together in a location that they did not want to be disturbed. So today they would go out into the field, and the way they used to do it then, they would go into the second story. They would go into an attic. In other words, the word Aliyah, look inside the Rash Ilyo, is 6 lines on the right column. Moishav Beizvad HaChachamim, the place where the Chachamim would get together, Liskabitz Lidvar HaMishpat, is called an Aliyah. And he quotes from another place here in the Yerushalmi, V'chiba Aliyah Hayisa. In other words, what Rabbi Ba is saying, I wasn't there when they made this Gezeda Yaakov. Yaakov is already a Midrabana. So you know, I wasn't there to know that they made it at kedei kach, that if you weren't Yaakov, if you didn't uproot it, you can't eat the fruits. Omrin Neitzei lachutz nilmad. This is an expression in the Bavli. We're familiar with the expression. It's called nafak dok va'ashkar. In other words, go out. I don't know that. Like, where do you get that from? We have to find it written somewhere. He's telling his colleague Rabbi Ilo, you cannot make it up. You can't say that even the Chachamim said Yaakov. That I know. You weren't there when they said it. For you to say, since they said Yaakov and you didn't do it, you can't eat the fruits. Find me where it says. Go find. Not go out in a negative way. Go out and look for more baraisas, look for more Kabbalah. Can be from an Anamoida that got it from his teacher to find the halach. And indeed, Nafkun Vishamun, they went out, they began to look for something that we have B'Kabbalah received. And what did we come to? That Rabbi Yoina, in the name of Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Tavlai, in the name of Rabbi Lazar, he said regarding this, Ein mechatchen al gzeira. Don't add chidushim on top of the gzeira. The same in another expression. Rabbi Yosi and Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Tavla b'shem Rabbi Lazar in the name of Ein moisifin al gzeira. Adarabba, that these questions happened from when they said Yaakov until now. There were times that the Shaila came up, and the earlier Amoraim decided that we don't have the right or the capacity to add to what was said. What was said in that gathering was Yaakov. Don't add to that. If you didn't uproot it, then the fruits could be eaten. Or according to the Rashadilya, the fruits won't be bound forever, every single year, with the laws of Shvi'is fruits. They're not.
Can I just comment that I think I don't know if it's clear one way or another, but what happened to that tree 10 years later?
Still there.
Meaning, right, but is there still a mitzvah or a commandment of Yakar?
That you have to uproot the tree. It's not like since you didn't do it, you get to keep it. No. But the owner of the field, Danny, is not a shomer. He's not observant in this area.
So you're saying everybody would agree that a tree that's planted, whatever this time is, within 30 days or 2 weeks of Shemitah, and it wasn't uprooted,
or planted
and
on
it's giving
Shemitah.
fruit for 10 years.
You got to uproot
everyone
it.
would agree you have to uproot that.
Yes, there is a machlokes tanoim that we're going to quote right now, Danny. The important.
This is like when you build something on Shabbos and you say that forever you
by cooking, we find that by cooking.
If you put the beam in your house and it was done by a Jew on Shabbos, then he has to destroy it even 10 years later or something like that.
Yes. There is a machlokes tanoim whether that applies if the person who did this violation did it only b'mezid, Rabbi Yehuda, versus Rabbi Meir that holds that even if you did it b'shoigeg. And we're going to get to that in a moment. And now now we're going to go to the following. So he's showing over here, for you, Edo, not mavushal kosher for Passover, lemahadrin, min mahadrin, which is only said by Chanukah, but they put it on the wine, without any arlo shvi'it, trumais and maisres. Without arlo shvi'is, trumais and maisres have been taken, and it's a new bottle. Now, why does it have to be a new bottle? I don't know, maybe we have to learn more didim. Okay, yeah, by hashgachas, they put it on there. Gavaldik, thank you. Wow, that was a good one, Keva. Now, here we go. The Yaakov is in the category of a knas. And now comes the question, do we penalize the son for a sin of the father? The toiv omeis, one guy planted it illegally. And he did not uproot it, the father. Benoi mao sheyeh mutar. Mutar means, can he leave the tree or not leave the tree? So Tana Rabbi Yaakov bar Abaya, the Vardalio, that if the toiva makes, he's quoting a brayso to answer this question. That this is the case. The guy planted it. He shouldn't have done it. He didn't plant it on Shvi'is. That's the din. He planted it within 30 days or within the 2 weeks, or whichever Tana you follow. So that says, now I know there's a machlokes and the girsa. That's why it used to be so hard to learn the Yerushalmi. We authenticated that the girsa is mutter. The brayso says, B'noi mutter lekaimoi. We do not penalize the son for the sin of his father. And now we have enough time. So in the Bavli Mesechtes Gittin, on Daf Nun Gimel Amid Beis, on Daf Nun Gimel Amid, no, I take that back. On Daf, that's the next thing we're going to quote. On Daf Mem Dalod Amid Aleph, all the way in the bottom, Chavra, listen to this. There's many areas, the Gemara in the Bavli puts it together, where there is a knas. Just as an example, your Eved is an Eved Kanani who's chayv to keep most of the mitzvahs, like women have to keep the mitzvahs. If you sell your Eved Kanani to a goy, the goyish owner won't allow him to keep the mitzvahs. So the Chachamim says that you penalize the owner ad asara b'damav, whether it means literally only 10 or whether it means no matter how much you have to pay back. That's a knas. There's the same question. A father sold the Eved Kanani, the father passed away, the Yoidish, normally the son, it's about the Yoidish, is the son obligated to redeem back? That's one topic. So I'm reading in the bottom, Daf Mem Daled, in the bottom of the Amit, that boy, Rabbi and Miyam Rabasi, that Mochrei Abdei Vameis, Maushi Kansu es B'nai Achrav. And they compare it to another case. What's the other case? The only kachim that you don't have to be poida, but if it gets a blemish, it goes right away l'chulin. The only kachim is a b'char, which is amazing. It's normally, even if an animal gets blemished, so it's not fit to go on the altar, you have to redeem it. But by a Bechar, there's a Chiddush, that if the Bechar gets halachically a blemish, so then the Kohen gets to eat it, it becomes chulin. And because of that, the Kohanim were suspect that they will blemish the Bechar that they were gifted to. So the din is that if they indeed did it, theoretically, well, it's chulin. But the Chachamim penalized the Kohen. You gave it a blemish, you cannot eat the Bechar. What happens if someone did it, the Kohen did it, and then the Kohen passed away? Same question, do we penalize? Does the Knas go on the son? So the Gemara says that im tim saram oizen b'choir v'meis. Yes, by veer, konsoy b'noi achrav. That's because it's asun midoi raisa, which is connected to our sugya. Maybe to make any kachim to blemish any animal that's already kedushas mizbeach is us. But over here, when it comes to selling an evet kanani to a guy to begin with, is not an isur dairaisa. Maybe there is no knas. That's the Gemara over there. And how does the Gemara resolve this question? It's amazing. It brings a Mishnah from Shvius, but not the Mishnah that we're learning about. So let me just give a heads up. We're going to get to there soon. The Mishnah that the Gemara quotes, I'm happy that David walked in here because I have great glasses. The only reason why I have to take it off is because if you can see the little oisius, you can't read it even. Okay. So he writes like this, that if you're not allowed to clear out a field on the Shemitah year, if you cleared it out from thorns, we already learned this yesterday. When you clear out a field from thorns, the thorns could damage that which is already there. Any act that I do to prevent damage is something that's allowed. So if I clear it out, if I dethorned my field on the Shemitah year, then I can begin using the field right after Shavuos. But the Mishnah says that if I did avodas ha'aretz, netaiva, I bettered the land, nedaira, I put the fence in an area for the land, if something that was not allowed to be done, I did, so then there's a penalty. Danny, like by Shabbos, b'chtei sheyasu. You can't right away use it. Since you broke something on Shvius, you can't use it right away after Shvius. And regarding this topic, v'amar Rabbi Yosef ben Rab Chanina, naktinon, we have a tradition that if the father did this, what he's not allowed to do, and then he passed away, his son is allowed to plant. So that is the source that we bring in the Bavli for this topic, that even if an Isur Da'iraisa was done, we do not penalize the son for the sin of the father. And that's exactly the what he's saying.
That's the source for Yerushalmi, right?
Could be. The Yerushalmi doesn't bring a source. Everything is Bekitzah. But because of that, in other words, I want to say the way I understand, Danny, there is a machlekes in the girsa, whether asur or mutar l'kaimoi. The reason why we, meaning our generation, our Talmid Chachamim, we authenticated mutar l'kaimoi, we're not looking to make arguments between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi. So we had such a, this is discussed in the Bavli. If the maskan in the Bavli is that the son is not penalized, we're going with the girsa that the son is not penalized. And now the final topic for today. And I'm going back to Masechtas Gittin in the Bavli, here to Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis. And let me say it like this. We quote it. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the knas, forget about the son, the knas on the father is only if he did it b'mezid. Rabbi Meir holds that you penalize mezid, you penalize shogeg even because of mezid. That's clear regarding all penalties, explicitly regarding this penalty as well. Okay? And I'm reading it. The Brisa says, Haneteya b'Shabbos, and then here we put together, Shabbos and Shvius. If you plant on Shabbos, b'shoigeg, Yekayim. B'mezid Yaakov. Amazing. But uba Shvius, bein b'shoigeg, bein b'mezid Yaakov, divided of Meir. Now, the Gemara Dir and Bavli wants to know, why is Rab Meir so machmir by Shvius? And the Gemara gives two reasons, and these two reasons are very significant. Reason number one, I'm reading inside in the Bavli, Nun Gimel Amud Beis in Gittin, Omer Rabbi Meir mepnei ma ani omer. No, we're quoting a Tana. We're quoting Rav Meir himself in a Brisa. Mepnei ma ani omer. B'Shabbos b'mezid, he's going to the Shvius. He's not forget about Shabbos. The last line in the Amid, mepnei she Yisrael moinim l'Shvius. And this is Kevin, what you mentioned. Now we have to bring Arla into the equation. when you plant something, for the first 3 years, however you count it, no one eats. When finally you begin eating it, people begin cheshboning. Yeah, how can you eat it? Is Arla already done? Yeah, because I planted it then. People by trees are looking for when it was planted to know when you can begin eating it. And when people begin eating it, they cheshbon backwards. And let's go in our case. Let's go with the Tanakama. You need 30 days, which means that if you plant it within 30 days, since it didn't take root, you cannot begin counting until Rosh Hashanah. So when people begin eating it 3 years after Shvius, which is on the 4th year, everyone will become aware it was planted. I know 30 days within 30 days, but that's called on Shvius. And because of that, they're going to think you can plant trees on Shvius. The Torah said, don't plant seeds. Maybe trees you can plant. In other words, it's gonna, people might learn from what you did. It's like a mara sign that you are allowed to do it. How will they know when you planted it? Because by trees, everyone is counting. Yisrael moinim l'shvius. The ein moinim l'shabbasis. No one will know you planted it on Shabbos. That's one opinion in the Gemara. And then the other opinion on Daf Nun Daled, I'll say by heart, that's called we're choshed the person. Shad is that a guy will do it b'mezit, and he'll say, I did it b'shoigig. And we don't want you to do it b'mezit. The whole point of the penalty is to prevent people from doing it. So Rav Meir holds, if you want to succeed in your kanas, you got to kansa even the mezit auto the shoigig. Now, says our Gemara that this answer that we said that the son is allowed to keep the tree and to eat the fruits, the son doesn't have to be yakar, only goes va'asir commando omer pnei achshad. It only fits to the second reason that we quoted from the Bavli, that we are gonna say, we don't trust that you did it b'shoigig. We are afraid you did it b'mezit. But that's only shayach on the person himself. So we say that even though, let's say it's emes that he's saying, you did it b'shoigig, the Chachamim said, no, maybe you did it b'mezit. But avol mipnei haminyan, those words we just quoted from the Bavli, if we're going to say that the reason why Rav Meir makes shoigig, even shoigig, is because people, they will find out when the tree was planted because everyone is waiting to eat from the fruits. And when you begin eating from the fruits, say, it was planted then. Everyone will know when you planted it. And they're going to figure out that you planted it within 30 days of Rosh Hashanah. Like we mentioned, within 30 days of Rosh Hashanah, Latana Kama is as if you planted it on Rosh Hashanah. Because the 3 years begins from when it takes root, not from when you put the seed in the ground. So people are going to know this tree was planted halachically on Shvius. What difference does it make whether the father is here, whether the son is here? We never want to have a tree that everyone will know this tree was planted on Shvius. So if the reason of Rav Meir will be because Yisrael moinim l'shvi is, then even the son has to uproot it. And don't use the word knas. It's not a knas. We don't want people to see that something was planted on shvius because they're gonna erroneously conclude that you can plant stuff on shvius. Gavaldik. So the Braisa said muter l'kaimoy. Says the Gemara, it depends. It depends which is the reason of Rabbi Meir. And as we quoted from the Bavli, it's a Braisa this. That's why we have to take it into account. It only fits if Rav Meir said because of Yisrael Moinim, it only fits muter l'kaimai if chashad. But if it's because of Yisrael Moinim l'shviyas, you don't have that. Now, all of this is predicated on one. Now that we link this to shviyas, we quoted the Gemara in the Bavli. You can't plant 30 days before Rosh Hashanah because it only takes root on 30 days, which means that when you begin counting Arla, you begin from when it takes root. You begin from Rosh Hashanah. Yes, we're going to prove it. And indeed, Tani, we learned. If you planted it 30 days, which means what? It took root before Rosh Hashanah. So then, since it took root before Rosh Hashanah, the Rosh Hashanah to the count of Arla begins on Echad B'Tishrei. Once Echad B'Tishrei comes and it's already rooted, so this year is already the second year. Also, Loi Shana Tamima. The 30 days count for a year. It's not even, it's one moment. As long as it took root prior to Rosh Hashanah, So then when Rosh Hashanah comes, it entered its second year for the count of Arla. And also, as we're learning over here, we link these two things together. But if you counted it within, if you planted it within 30 days, we're following the sheet of the Tanakh. It goes both ways. That means you only begin counting the first year, Echad B'Tishrei. That's when it begins. And also, because of what we learned over here, and we'll stop over here, and we'll continue tomorrow, we're mamash in middle, at Khan, when it comes to how you begin the count of Arla. But don't think that Echad B'Tishrei is where you end the count for Arla. You only end the third year.